There's three different fundamental skills that I think about when I'm trying to shape a phrase. The first is dynamics and tone color. So in order to create that beautiful rainbow shape of soft and then loud and then soft again at the end, I like to go to the real extremes of both the color and the dynamic. So starting with way, way, way less air than I normally would, and with a color that's maybe not as beautiful or full as I normally would. So something a little more pale or thin. So if I was to play a long tone, I probably wouldn't really like this sound. But for that last phrase of the opening of the Louis Gone, it's a really appropriate sound to start with because it gives me tons of room to grow to create the rainbow shape. And then same at the end of the phrase. Not the most beautiful sound, but it helps with that extreme with the dynamics. So how do I create those different colors of sound? Well, when I'm starting the low E, there's a couple things I'm thinking about. The vowel shape in my mouth is kind of like an E or an oo, something really small, and that helps thin out the sound. Whereas when you're trying to play with a full sound, you open it. We're always saying, oh, open up your mouth. So to create that pale sound, you want to keep it nice and small. And then we have to pressurize the airstream in order to keep it fast enough that the sound doesn't droop and the pitch doesn't fall. Because when you're playing with so little air, if it's not moving fast enough, that's what's going to happen. So without any air support, it sounds a little bit like this. It's not the prettiest opening, so if I really, really use those muscles, then I have so much more flexibility with the color of the sound and it doesn't droop in the pitch. And so then when you grow into the middle of the phrase, you want to open up to get that more beautiful, round, full sound. And then you kind of want to release that air support just a bit. So you're always supporting the sound. You always have to be controlling the pressure of the air, the speed of the air, but you can adjust it based on what you're doing. So as I go up the phrase, I just relax it just a bit so that the air isn't moving so fast that it gets a little shrill or sharp or forced. Okay, so opening it up, relaxing, and then as I come down the phrase again, really activating those muscles again, and then going back to that E shape in the mouth. So to put it all together, so now the second fundamental skill is vibrato. So how you use your vibrato can help you shape the phrase. When you're starting, you want to make sure that there's very little vibrato and that it's very thin vibrato. If you have wide, slow vibrato, at the beginning and the end of the phrase, it sounds a little wonky. You know? It kind of interrupts the sound and brings the listeners thinking, what is that? So we just want almost not noticeable at all, negligible vibrato, but it's got to be very, very thin and kind of that shimmery vibrato. Then as you grow, you can intensify the vibrato, you can make it wider, you can make it faster and stronger. Especially those notes. And when you're doing a fade, you can even fade the vibrato. You can just cut out the vibrato at the end. It makes it even easier to fade off the note. The third fundamental skill that I like to think about is rubato. So rubato is robbed time, but really we're just borrowing the time. So we're speeding up towards the peak of the phrase and then giving that time back and kind of relaxing it at the end of the phrase. If I do that phrase with no rubato at all, just super straight, it sounds like this. So you hear a shape, but it's lacking that kind of intensity and the excitement of moving towards the peak. It's not bringing us through to the peak the way that it would if you speed up a little bit towards it. So those same notes that you're adding all that intense vibrato to are the notes that you're going to push forward towards the peak of the phrase. Okay, you can do even more than that. No matter how you do it, the phrase will be about the same length, but within it, you're speeding up and slowing down to create that excitement and really enhance the shape of the phrase to the maximum. One thing that I learned when I was working on my phrasing was to really exaggerate beyond what is maybe even tasteful or useful. And so going too far and getting just so overly grotesque about like the dynamics or the rubato or the vibrato or anything, then it showed me, okay, that's too far. Now I know where I can scale it back, but still really have the maximum exaggeration and contrast for the phrase shape. Often we think we're going kind of far with the shape, but there's so much more that we can do. So if you want any more tips or tricks on how to apply fundamental skills to your flute playing, join us in our free school community, Fundamentally Flute. For the entire month of October, we're focusing in on sound, flute tone. So we'll answer any of questions that you have about how to create a beautiful flute sound, a flexible flute sound. You can post videos of yourself for feedback from us and just join a beautiful community of flute players that are growing and learning together in a wonderful and safe place.